The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of The Good Place, Seasons 3 and 4, where we're going to discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings of this just-concluded TV show. And joining me today on the panel are Jimmy Aiken. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
And Mike Dens. Hi, Mike.
Hi, good to be here.
Folks, if you are new to the podcast, please remember to subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, your favorite podcast app, or at the SQPN YouTube channel, where you should make sure you hit the bell to get notifications. This show, we cover lots of ground. We talk about lots of TV shows and movies, both old and new, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. And check out our archives and see if there's some things that you might enjoy there as well. So we're talking about The Good Place, and this isn't the first time.
No. Check out our archives, because there are things you will enjoy there as well.
Of course, yes.
Salesmanship 101, Dom.
They're objectively enjoyable.
Yes,
yeah.
I am still learning at the feet of the master. So two things you will enjoy, if you have not already heard them, are the two episodes we've done previously on The Good Place, on Season 1 and then Season 2. I'll give the disclaimer here. We are spoiling everything in this series in this discussion.
And that's important to know, because if you're not familiar with The Good Place, a non-spoiler version of it it's a sitcom that is set in the afterlife, and the less you know about it going in, the better.
Yes.
So if it is a very clever, very well done, very charming series, not perfect, like anything. It's got some more modern sensibilities in it that it could have done without, but It's very clever, very well done, very sweet, and you should watch it if that sounds remotely interesting to you. So if you haven't watched it, go watch it now and then come back, because we're going to have to spoil things.
Right. Now, I have to say that we did an episode, the episode 12 of Movies and Series of Movies and TV Shows, where we talked about Season 1, but not including the season finale. You could listen to that we tried to do that without spoiling too much of what goes on in the show. But if you have not watched the show at all, I just go watch it and then watch the first season at least.
It's just 13 22-minute episodes, so it's not going to take you long.
Exactly. All right. So let's get into what we've got here. So here's a quick recap of the series, we're now in spoiler territory. In the first season, you have
we should have a sound effect for that, like some klaxon or something. You're going into spoiler territory now.
Actually, I know podcasts that do that, but I may insert one here. So. Now I've created this obligation for myself.
The sound of a spoiled child or spoiled fruit or something. I don't know.
I want it now.
Yeah. Because spoiled food doesn't make a sound, so it would have to be a spoiled child.
It actually, in some circumstances, but we don't want to go into that.
Yes. So The Good Place. In the first season, we meet our soul squad, as they'll come to be known. We have the amoral loner Eleanor. We have the small time. Lovable but dumb criminal Jason. We have the self-aggrandizing, very self-centered Tahani, but also very sweet. We have the obsessive,
indecisive Chidi. That's right.
Yeah. And they all show up in The Good Place. So they think after death, but Eleanor and Jason both believe they're there incorrectly, which is probably true given their lives. And so Eleanor had been assigned Chidi as her soulmate, and he's a moral philosopher, and he wants to teach them ethics so they can earn their presence in the afterlife. You can see the problems already where this began. Meanwhile, Tahani is Jason's supposed soulmate, and she attempts to help Michael, who is they believe this kindly architect of the neighborhood. The afterlife is in neighborhoods. You'll end up in a neighborhood with people.
So you end up in a neighborhood of people who like the same stuff as you. So
Yeah.
it's sort of custom tailored to your preferences.
Exactly. So they think. And so she's helping Michael deal with the chaos that Eleanor and Jason are causing. And eventually they find out that they're actually in an experimental bad place, hell, that was chosen and created by Michael to torture them emotionally and psychologically for eternity by thinking that they're in a good place and things aren't good.
And their own individual foibles are what will cause them to torture each other. So Michael clearly is a fan of Jean-Paul Sartre, because this is the premise of his play No Exit.
That's right. Hell is other people. Then in the second season, Michael has to, because they've figured out the gimmick, Michael, who's trying to prove, to the other demons that his idea will work, has to keep resetting the good place and erasing their memories, trying to get them to psychologically torture each other, but they keep figuring it out every time. And eventually they get persuade him to get onto their side, and they try to help, get into the good place for real together. And then Michael has to take their case to this eternal judge named Jen.
After hydrogen, because that's when she came into existence, when hydrogen did.
Right. And she's not God, but she's the judge that judges between the two, good place and bad place. And she rules that they can go back to Earth in their lives with no memory of the afterlife in order to attempt to prove that they have developed morally in their time in the good place being tortured, or in the bad place that they thought was a good place being tortured by each other. So that's where we come to the third season. Okay.
So the third season is primarily set on Earth.
Yes.
And I remember, by the way, you mentioned they eventually become called the Soul Squad. They have a remarkable number of names. They're also at one point Team Cockroach and the Brainy Bunch.
Yep.
And actually, they're forming the Brainy Bunch when we meet them at the beginning of the third season, because they've had all of their memories wiped. And so they're just continuing on with their lives. But they start out, trying to be good. It's like they did learn in the afterlife.
Right.
They incorporated good habits and stuff, even though they don't remember it. But then under the pressure of modern life, over 6 months or a year or so, they fall back into their old ways. And Michael, who is watching over them, because he's now, even though he's a demon, he's now on their side. He wants them to succeed. And so he takes Janet, who we haven't mentioned yet.
Yes.
Janet is basically a personified Alexa. She knows everything and can magically create stuff in the afterlife. So she's like the ultimate personal assistant. Not a girl, as she says. Not a human. She's a device. But Michael and Janet then try to steer the four humans back together, because they realized that what helped them improve in the afterlife was their interactions together, especially Chidi as a moral philosopher helping the others. And so they get Eleanor back together with Chidi, and they get the others involved too, and they end up forming a study group in
Australia.
Chidi's adopted country, Australia. He's from Africa.
It's an experimental kind of like their test subject, right?
Right. Yeah. They've all had near-death experiences, because their life was the same up to the moment they died, and then Michael saved them.
Right.
And so that's where their new life picks up with the suppressed memories of the afterlife. And so they go to one of Chidi's colleagues at his university,
Simone.
who is a neurobiologist named Simone. And because they've all had these near-death experiences and it had an effect on their moral character, so it seems, they're going to do a neurological study of how near-death experiences affect your moral character. And that's how they became the Brainy Bunch.
Right.
This is actually interesting, because as I talk about in an episode of Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World on near-death experiences, people often report becoming more compassionate and more ethical after having near-death experiences.
Right. That's the interesting thing is how this is true. I want to go back to something you mentioned, is how they revert they start their return to life on Earth being more moral, sort of rejecting the ways that they were before, especially Eleanor and Jason, because they had the most immoral lives beforehand. And it's almost like they fall back into the ways, and it's almost like this is the life without grace, without that grace to continue. And then when Michael returns to Earth to nudge them, they get this supernatural help, which is kind of like the work of grace to nudge us back on the path. So I thought that was a kind of interesting that the writers they kind of, I don't think it was intentional given how else they imagine things, but they kind of stumble on this natural idea of the work of grace.
And I don't know that it's I don't know if they consciously realized it or not. I'm pretty sure they realized that Michael's name means who is like God.
Right.
And Michael is an angel in the Bible. And Michael now on the show is, even though he's a reformed demon, he's now serving as their guardian angel.
I'm so happy that I'm in tune with Jimmy, because exactly what I was thinking, my name being Michael. And that now he's appearing to them in different, he's a librarian, he's these different...
A bartender. Ted Danson is a bartender.
That appear in their lives as in a human form, that he always has been, but, he looks like a regular human being, and is just giving them the right nudges and the right advice and stuff to push them in the right direction, because he's trying to get them all to be together until they're discovered.
Yeah.
Yes.
And until also, because this is a comedy, Michael is a comedic character. And so when he's appearing in human form to give them these nudges, he always chooses these ridiculous personas with ridiculous names, like, hi, Jason, I know you're a hip hop dancer. I'm the producer, Zach Pizzazz.
Yes. Right. One of the things I love about this show, and I think you've mentioned this before, Jimmy, too, is that the writers and producers have no compunction about blowing up the entire premise halfway through the season, just tearing everything down. Yeah, just tearing everything down without notice, not dragging things out, like dragging out a premise because it's funny, but just like, hey, we had the funny gag, we did the couple of funny episodes, and now we're changing everything up again, and it keeps it fresh.
And they do this each season. In the first season, Eleanor wakes up in the afterlife, and they could have had her keep it a secret that she realizes very quickly she does not belong there.
Yeah.
And they could have drug that along for a whole season of her keeping that secret and finally telling somebody at the end. But no, bam, she tells Chidi immediately.
Yeah.
And then in the second season, they've realized that they're in hell, so they're being rebooted repeatedly. They could have stretched out those reboots over a whole season, but no, 2 episodes and we're done with the repeats.
Right.
And then in this season, it's okay, now they're restarting their lives on Earth without memories of the afterlife. They could have stretched that out all season. No, bang, they suss out Michael and Janet really fast within a few episodes, and the course of the plot changes again.
Now remind me, because it has been a while, so I didn't rewatch all the episodes for the podcast, but what was the third season, when she went all the way over to where Chidi was and met him? Okay, so that's the beginning of the third season. That quickly materialized into, a lot of different things, because they showed that at the end of the second season. Like, that she went and met him, then you're waiting to find out how that would all turn out. Which nothing like you imagined it would.
That's right. And it's funny because very quickly by the fourth episode, they've moved on to like they're in this brain study group, and they're moving quickly through things. By the 5th episode, Michael and Janet have revealed what's going on to them. Confessed what the real situation is.
Because
they caught him in a portal. They had a portal open to the afterlife, and all of them, knew something was going on, and they all recognized Michael as the bartender and the librarian. And wait a minute,
you're Zach Pizzazz, the producer.
You're Sam Malone from Cheers. Wait a minute. No, they didn't do that. But he was a bartender, so
yes,
yeah. And there are various plot complications with all of this. When they formed the brain study group, a demon from the bad place infiltrates it, who's determined to split up this group so the humans can't help each other improve.
Yeah.
So he's the most obnoxious. He's incredibly friendly, but he's the most obnoxious, smothering people with kindness person that is really driving them away from each other just to avoid him.
Yes.
And that causes problems because he's not supposed to be there, and Janet and Michael get in trouble with the judge, as does the demon, Trevor, I think is his name.
Yep.
And so Michael has decided that he needs to sneak into the judge's chamber to reset the experiment again. And it's as he and Janet are opening a portal to go there that the humans discover him and realize this is not what it looks like. And so at that point, Michael and Janet come clean. They explain how the afterlife works, and they explain that everybody was damned initially, and they've been trying to help them. But now there's a new problem, because now, since they know about the afterlife, they are incentivized by knowledge of their damnation to try to be good, and that ruins their motive to be good. So because that's polluted now, they can't earn good points. At least that's the theory.
Right.
And so now they're all guaranteed to be damned, and they decide, despite that, to go ahead, and this is where they shift from being the Brainy Bunch to the Soul Squad, I guess. They decide they're going to help people anyway. We may be damned, but we can help other people improve, and they can get into the good place.
And that's the next shift in the show is several episodes where they do this.
Yeah. I was surprised they did not pick up on what I would have been inclined to do at that point, which is say, okay, now they are earning good points because they think they're damned and they're doing good in spite of that.
Right.
So they should be earning good points through that, even if they don't realize it. And they never picked up on that. And but we do get a series of them going around like to their relatives and loved ones, trying to help them get into the good place. And to me, this is the weakest part of this season. I really enjoyed the third season. I think the third season may even be my favorite because of all the wild stuff that happens in it. But I found the sequence of going around and helping the relatives and friends get into heaven was the weakest part of the season for me.
Right. We get to see Eleanor meet her mother, who turned out not to be the bad person that Eleanor remembered her to be. She's
not
now a better
bad.
Not as bad, right. Tahani reconciles with her sister Camilla, which when they realize that Camilla is also trying to compensate for how cruel their parents were to pit them against each other. Jason he realizes his dad, Donkey Doug, I love these names. Donkey Doug is actually a lost cause, so he tries to save his friend Pillboy.
I love how Donkey Doug is. He looks young enough. He apparently had Jason when he was quite young.
Yeah.
We've met Donkey Doug before and just not known he was Jason's dad.
Right.
Even though he's always going, "Hey, Jason, my boy." And we always just thought that was like affectionate gang slang or something. But no, he's literally his boy.
Yeah. Jason has to tell Pillboy that Tahani, and Michael are astronaut spies. I love Jason. Jason just always cracked me up. I have to mention, like, when Jason finds out in the fourth season that Blake Bortles is no longer on the Jacksonville Jaguars, that I just love that they put that in there, because it's just because when I heard in real life that Blake Bortles was let go from the Jaguars, my first thought was, oh my gosh, Jason's going to be so upset.
he really embraces the new quarterback, though.
Yes, he does.
He was very excited. Yes, we found out.
Yeah. So, one part I really liked. So after this whole seeing their relatives, they then go to Canada to meet their blueprint for humanity. They come out. They're coming up with this plan of how do we help all of humanity. We have to find someone who we know it gets into the good place, and that's Doug Forsett.
And this is a really deep cut into the show's history, because way back in episode 1 of the first season, we saw on Michael's wall in the afterlife in his office, he has a picture of this young stoner looking guy. And he said, and Eleanor asked, well, who's that? And he says, oh, that's Doug Forsett. He was this kid in the 1970s who took magic mushrooms and hallucinated how the afterlife actually works. We were all blown over.
and thus he has the highest point score possible of all of humanity because he knows how the point system works. And what I like here is we find out, yes, he does everything that to maximize his points, and he's miserable because he's obsessed with the points. And I say, and I'm looking at that, I'm thinking, this kind of corresponds to like people who have scrupulosity, that you're so obsessed with making sure I don't transgress the line. If I have to be obsessed about every little moral decision, ethical decision I make, that you end up being miserable.
He's like Chidi, except he's more decisive and more selfless. Chidi will obsess about what's the right moral answer. Doug Forsett doesn't obsess in the same way. He just lets you walk all over him.
Right.
And so he'll just, if anybody makes any kind of request of him, no matter how much it inconveniences him, like, oh yes, I'll do that immediately. By the way, when we meet the older Doug Forsett, now that he's not just a young stoner, but he's an older gentleman now, he's played by Michael McKean, the comedian from This Is Spinal Tap and other things like that.
Yes. The young Doug Forsett, the picture on the wall is actually Michael Schur, the guy who created the show. I think that's his picture that they put on the wall in Michael's office. So I thought that was always funny. Then we have that at the end of that episode, the demons, meanwhile, have not been sitting idle. Sean and the other demons. I love that the head demon is called Sean. It's just like such a normal sounding name. And
the demons have this real Mad Men vibe.
Yes.
It's like sinister early 1960s business people vibe to them.
Right. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if they had some of the actors from Mad Men like show up, and that would have been as some of the demons. That would have been awesome. But so they've been plotting how to get back into things here. And so Sean and some other ones, they come through a portal in this town in Canada to capture the humans.
And they meet up with them at the humans have gone to the Puking Moose bar.
Yes, because, what else do you go to in Canada? And he wants to capture them and abduct them back to the bad place. And so this fight breaks out. Janet, who hasn't had her powers because she's on Earth, when she touches the portal, ends up getting her powers back immediately and starts forcing them back to the afterlife.
Action Janet. She's like super ninja Janet, takes care of all the demons lickety split. She's awesome.
She is great.
Yeah.
I gotta say, the actress who plays Janet is so great because not only does she have to be Janet, but she has to be bad Janet. She has to be disco Janet. She in one of these episodes, neutral Janet. One of these episodes, she's Chidi, Eleanor, Jason, and Tahani in Janet's body. So she has to act like those people in her body. It's like
in fact, that's the very next episode. That's the way they escape from the demons. Is she takes them into her void, which means technically they die on Earth again.
Right.
And when they show up in the afterlife, because they're in Janet's void, and this is a strain on her, she's not initially able to make them bodies like their own. And so they're all Janet. And so the actress, Darcy, I forget her last name,
Carden,
has to play the other actors as those characters, adopting their mannerisms and speech patterns. And it's really, really cool to watch.
She is so
it's fun
good.
because you get to try to figure out who she is. She doesn't just say, I'm Jason or I'm Eleanor. She acts like them, and everyone else is trying to figure out which one are you. And sometimes you can figure it out before the characters do. And it was really fun, and it was an excellent acting job. But of course, she did have several seasons to get it down.
Yeah.
So she, got to spend time with them so that we were comfortable with them and knew who she was being when she was being Eleanor or being Chidi, especially with fairly strong characters. They all had their idiosyncrasies that were easy to identify after a while.
When she's Jason, it's really obvious.
Yeah.
She's kind of slow, but really happy. Dope, man.
Yeah, I got to say here, the cast of this show is so great. Everybody does such a good job. They're so funny, and yet they're so authentic when you need to be authentic. There's real, connections. But like Jamila Jamil, who I've never seen in anything before, she's so funny. She's so good as Tahani. Kristen Bell obviously is, she's been doing lots of things. She's funny. William Jackson Harper is Chidi, again, another someone I'd never seen before. Although I've since seen him in Jack Ryan, the Amazon series, which is interesting. I'd like to see him do more in that in a serious role. But and then Manny Jacinto, who plays Jason, and of course Ted Danson is awesome. Ted Danson has always been.
I've been impressed with Ted Danson for a long time. He's one of those people who you're able to forget his iconic character through the other characters he plays. You're not like, oh, it's Sam Malone. It's kind of like Harrison Ford. He's actually able to play huge iconic characters and then go on and do other things, and you're not stuck on.
He's not just
the one he used to be.
Ted Danson does not come across as the same person he played on Cheers.
No, he's not a one trick pony at all. He has a range to do a lot of things. And you remember he was in like Three Men and a Baby, and I mean the different things I remember him playing. Different types of characters. He's a very good actor.
He's not like Jason Statham, who's the Jason Statham in every movie.
I was recently watching a commentary on the movie 7% Solution, which was written by Nicholas Meyer, the same guy who wrote Wrath of Khan and some other Star Trek things. And he wrote this Sherlock Holmes novel, which then got turned into the movie, The 7% Solution. And he was commenting in some of the bonus footage that there's a difference between an actor and a star. A star, an actor, is a person who pretends to be other people, and a star is a person who pretends other people are him.
yes, that is very true. Very true. We can all think of examples of that.
Yeah. By the way, Darcy Carden is the actress who plays Janet and does an awesome job at it.
Yes. So they go from the void to accounting. Because if everybody has got a points total, someone is doing the points counting. And so they have to go to accounting. And I don't want to skip over the fact that Chidi and Eleanor had fallen in love in the second season. And when they had their memories erased, that was forgotten. And they've spent most of this season trying to being moved back together. And it was in the episode with I think it was the Janet episode where they really come to terms with that Chidi remembers loving Eleanor and Eleanor remembers being in love with him. And they have Eleanor has this crisis when she doesn't think Chidi loves her back that threatens the void that they're in, and which would destroy everything.
So during all of the reboots in season 2, she and Chidi fell in love multiple times, and he could even become decisive. We see footage when they're on the run at one point and they're hiding in the medium place.
Yep.
And Eleanor is like about to confess that she loves Chidi, and he just says, "I love you," which for someone as indecisive as him is amazing.
Right.
And then after their memories were wiped, when they started living life on Earth again in the third season, they didn't remember their love for each other, but eventually Michael revealed it to Eleanor, and then he gave her back her memories of of this. And so she's been redeveloping her feelings for Chidi, but Chidi's attitude, and she confesses in the Puking Moose to him that that they've been in love in the past, and she thinks she's in love with him now.
Yeah.
And his attitude is, well, I'm very flattered, but I don't remember any of that, so I'm not the same person. He's got a memory theory of identity, which some philosophers do. And so I'm not the same person. I don't remember that. And she then has this crisis, which affects Janet's void, and he kisses her. And that reaffirms her enough that the crisis settles down. Everybody gets their own appearance back, and the crisis of the void is averted.
Yeah, well, just before that, I didn't want to forget that they also stuck another love interest for Chidi in the beginning of the season, Simone, where they had a great episode where he had to keep on trying to break up with her in this simulation, trying to figure out how to say the right thing so she wouldn't be upset, because he didn't want to leave her upset with him. And it was kind of like just this montage of it's not possible to break up with somebody and have them be okay with it, no matter what he tried to do. So that was a funny episode, but that was, I don't know that, I don't remember if Eleanor was already realizing her feelings for Chidi when he was with Simone and that was a problem for her, or if it came later. I don't remember. Do you remember how that sequence went?
I remember Eleanor ended. I don't know that Eleanor. I don't think Eleanor had. In fact, I'm pretty sure she didn't have her memories back yet, because the reason she had to break up with her, or part of it, is now that they know about the afterlife and that they're all damned, they're going to travel the world to help other people.
And they didn't want to ruin it for her by telling her, so they couldn't tell her what was going on, and then she'd be damned too. So he had to just kind of get her out of the picture. Right. Okay.
Right. So when they everything stabilizes in Janet's void, they get ejected from the void, and they show up in, like I mentioned, in accounting with Michael and Janet, and they encounter, like, there's this one poor guy who, I forget what it is. He has to account for, like, the worst people, and he's all kind of, like, messed up for it.
Yeah, what it is humans are creative enough, and the world is growing ever more complex, and humans are inventing new actions. You know, like you couldn't have, you adopt frozen embryos. Well, that didn't happen before the 20th century. So there are new things humans are coming up with that have to be assigned positive or negative points. And at one moment, I forget what the two items are, but it's just someone who's just done this and this. And surprisingly, and we've now got to figure out a point score for it. And surprisingly, it's not a weird sex thing. And then they get a little more information. Oh, wait, it is a weird sex thing. Oh, and there's this one guy who has to assign points to all the weird sex things. And he is so frustrated by it.
Right. He's just so messed up by all the weird stuff people do. Right. And that actually comes out because they find out that it's not that the demons were messing with the good place. They found out that no one in 521 years has gone into the good place. Something is wrong.
Yeah. And Michael had thought that was because the demons were somehow fixing the point system and depriving people of points that were rightfully theirs.
Right.
But it turns out, no, the world has just become so complex, you can't earn points the way you could 500 years ago.
Right. The complexity of modern life introduced unintended consequences to all actions and decisions, which is interesting. It's kind of from a moral standpoint, it's kind of a chronological snobbery, isn't it? Thinking that, us moderns are so complex.
Yeah, and in the ancient world, it was really complex too, and there were unintended consequences then. And frankly, people were not as moral back then. Actually, we've improved morally, despite what people may think.
Yeah.
And so this is a point where I can go with it for the sake of comedy, but I don't buy it in terms of real life.
Right. So in order to figure out how to fix this, what they did was they got the Book of Dougs out of in accounting. It has the listing for everyone named Doug, including Doug Forsett, and that's where they realized that the system's broken, and so they have to. They go to meet the judge at the interdimensional hole of pancakes.
Yeah, and because Michael and Janet are still on the run and the humans aren't supposed to be here either, they need to meet in neutral territory. So they go to IHOP, the interdimensional hole of pancakes.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead like a whole episode because they do go to the good place, this sort of ante room in the good place. It's the mail room. The mail room, and one of the things I noticed here is that, so they meet like the Good Place Committee runs the things there, and they are pleasant,
very friendly, very affirming too,
and easily fooled and kind of dumb in some ways.
And because they're rule followers, which is what got them into the good place, they're really concerned about following rules. So they agree that what Michael has discovered about the point system is horrible and it needs to be investigated and something needs to be done about it. And we're going to do that. And we're going to be really thorough about it. So the first thing we're going to do is take 400 years to find competent investigators we can have investigate.
Right. 400 years. That's not good enough. So they try to, there isn't a whole lot of action in this one, except there's relationship stuff between Chidi and Eleanor, and Tahani is trying to reconcile that she and Jason got together when Jason and Janet were really supposed to be together, and she makes them feel better about it. And so everyone's sharing their feelings of love.
Also, this is nice because even though they're just in the mailroom, they are in the good place. And this has been a goal of theirs through the whole, well, at least seasons 2 and 3, and really kind of in season 1, since Eleanor and Jason realized they didn't belong there. But how do we get into the good place for real? And so we finally get into at least a little part of the good place, and we meet people who are really nice, like the mail lady, Gwendolyn. She's awesome. She's just super friendly and helpful and so innocent that even though it occurs to her that they're doing something they shouldn't, she just doesn't believe it when they assure her they're not doing something they shouldn't.
So, and isn't this where they realize for sure that they're in a good place because they can't swear?
Right. Although Eleanor couldn't swear in the fake good place.
Yeah, well, that's that's he just made it that way. But here they really,
they really can't. Yeah,
they really can't swear again. They're saying fork and other things that they can't say. The things they come up with to replace swear words and stuff is pretty funny.
So this is when they figure out the point system is broken.
Right. And so they go talk to the judge at IHOP.
Yeah.
And I love how we get to see IHOP as if it's this weird multidimensional place.
Yeah.
And then they skin it for the humans so the humans won't be too freaked out by it with an actual pancake house.
Yes.
And we see, like, at one point there is this bizarre slug-like creature on Tahani's shoulder, and which they refer to as a need noodle.
Yeah.
And to keep her from being freaked out about it, when they skin all this as a pancake house, it becomes a scarf. And she's like, "Oh, I have this cute scarf now." And she goes to touch it, and they're like, "No, do not touch the need noodle."
like, do you not remember 2 seconds ago? So they go to the judge, and the judge agrees.
She agrees to investigate. She's going to go down and see how complex life is on Earth for herself. So she's willing to do what the Good Place Committee people were going to take 400 years to even start.
Right.
So she goes down there, and because time doesn't work linearly on Earth, or because time in the afterlife doesn't work linearly, it's a Jeremy Bearimy. At least time is shaped, the timeline of the afterlife is shaped in such a way that it looks like the cursive English words Jeremy Bearimy, including the disconnected dot over the I.
Yes.
She's back in a flash and is so exhausted by Earth. And it's like all the moral complexities and Eleanor says, yeah, like there's this chicken sandwich that if you eat it, it means you hate gay people, but it's so delicious. And Judge Jen says, I know.
Yes, that's what eating a Chick-fil-A sandwich means. Yeah. So it's really not that complicated. So she gets it. The judge gets it, and she realizes there's a problem. So she pulls Sean out of the bad place, and they come up with this plan from Chidi. Chidi suggests that the experiment be repeated of can humans become more moral through thinking that they're in the good place but not deserving of it. And
so they're going to do it again to prove we were not a fluke.
Right.
This can happen to other people.
Right. So Sean, here's the deal. Sean will select 4 moderately bad humans to live in a neighborhood designed by Michael. Yeah. And then
comparable to the badness of the original 4. So no serial killers and no saints, somewhere in the middle.
Yes. So Michael and the others will torture, quote unquote, the same way they did to the original, the Soul Squad, the original 4, and then see what it's like after a year, whether they've earned enough points to get into heaven. The good place. So they get everything all set up, ready to go. And then Michael has a panic attack right as the first human shows up. And so Eleanor has to take over as the person running the fake good place.
And I saw this coming, and I thought it was so awesome because what they've achieved at this point is role reversal.
Yeah. Because
originally Michael was torturing Eleanor and the others and totally manipulating them. And now Eleanor has to be the Michael for the experiment. She has to be the new architect, and she and the others are now manipulating the newcomers just like they were manipulated during season 1.
Right.
And she's a natural.
Yes. And so the season finale for this third season is the first of the subjects wakes up. His name is John. He's a gossip columnist who tormented Tahani when she was alive, because Tahani was a celebrity.
He ran a blog called The Gossip Toilet, where he viciously raked her over the coals.
Right. And what we find out that Sean has chosen of the four people who have problematic connections or associations for all of the four people from the original group. That's to make it difficult for them.
He couldn't send them the worst people in humanity, but he could send them the worst people for these four.
Yeah.
So John is there to mess up the experiment for Tahani. Yeah. And then lo and behold, in comes Simone.
Yes.
To mess up the experiment for Chidi, because he still has this awkward relationship with her, because they were dating, but then he broke up with her, and now she's here in the afterlife, and he's got to save her soul, and he's so indecisive. He knows he's going to freak out at some point and be unable to handle the pressure of that. And so in order to avoid ruining the experiment on which the fate of humanity hangs, so no pressure,
right?
He volunteers to have his memories wiped again, so he won't freak out about Simone being one of the test subjects.
Right.
Even though this means he now is not going to remember his newfound love for Eleanor.
Right. And Eleanor she accepts this. I mean, this is part of the growth of Eleanor through this series. And then the fourth one, he doesn't really have a direct connection. He's like bad for all of them. Is Brent, a entitled, privileged, wealthy, racist chauvinist who's just obnoxious.
Do we actually meet Brent at the end of because we're right at the end of the third season?
No, I think Brent comes in the season premiere. Yeah.
We meet the last two subjects of the experiment after the season opener.
Howdy, folks. This is Dom Bettinelli. Even though we're talking about a show about the afterlife, we didn't want the podcast to go on for an eternity, so we're cutting it in half. We're going to interrupt our conversation here, and in the next episode, we'll pick it back up again and discuss Season 4 and our thoughts on how the series ended and what we think about the show in general. We'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create Secrets of Movies and TV shows, including Christopher H., Lynn L., Richard L., Kevin B., and Nathan V. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Movies and TV shows and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. And you can let us know what you think of our discussion of The Good Place Season 3 so far by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/secrets or the StarQuest Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to secrets@sqpn.com. Until next time, Mike Denz, thank you for joining me in sharing the Secrets of the Good Place, Seasons 3 and 4. And Jimmy Aiken, thank you as well. Once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Movies and TV shows on StarQuest. And be sure to tune in for next time when we discuss Season 4.